My name is Stephanie Miller, and I'm 29 years old. I stared at the wedding invitation in my hand, the first contact from my family in 8 long months. 8 months since I packed up and moved from Pennsylvania to Colorado. 8 months, and not one person in my family had noticed I was gone. Not my parents, not my older sister Madison, not my younger brother Tyler. Nobody. And now, after all this time, they expected me to show up for the big day like nothing had happened. I felt a churning mix of anger, hurt, and somehow, inexplicably, guilt. If you're watching this from somewhere your family forgot you exist, drop a comment below and subscribe to follow my journey through this family mess. Growing up as the middle child in the Miller family was like being a ghost sometimes. I existed in the space between my older sister Madison, the golden child with her perfect grades and ambition, and my younger brother Tyler, the baby of the family who excelled at every sport he touched. I was just Stephanie. The quiet one. The one who drew pictures while Madison won debate competitions and Tyler scored touchdowns. Our house in suburban Pennsylvania was always bustling with activity, but rarely because of anything I did. The refrigerator was plastered with Madison's awards and Tyler's newspaper clippings. My art contest certificate made it up there once, but was quickly covered by Tyler's football schedule. Mom, I got accepted into the regional art showcase, I announced at dinner one night when I was 16. That's nice, honey, Mom said, barely looking up from her plate. Madison, tell your father about that scholarship interview. It wasn't that they were cruel. They just didn't see me. My quiet nature made it easy for them to overlook me, and over time, I became an expert at fading into the background. The only person who really saw me was my Aunt Carol, my mother's sister. She had no children of her own, and whenever she visited, she made a point to seek me out. Show me what you've been drawing lately, Stephanie, she would say, genuinely interested in my sketches. When I graduated with my degree in graphic design, Aunt Carol drove 6 hours to attend the ceremony and took me to dinner afterward. I'm so proud of you, she said, raising her glass in a toast. My parents had attended too, of course, but they spent most of the day bragging about Madison's law school acceptance and Tyler's athletic scholarship to anyone who would listen. After college, I took a job at a small design firm in Philadelphia, about an hour from my parents' home. I visited for Sunday dinners when I could, though these visits followed the same pattern as always. Madison talked about her cases, Tyler talked about his games, and I sat quietly, occasionally attempting to share something about a project I was working on. That's nice, dear, my mother would say before turning to Madison. Now, what were you saying about that big case? I tried, in my own way, to be seen. I sent group texts about my promotions. I brought portfolio samples to family gatherings. I even once deliberately dyed my naturally brown hair bright red. Mom frowned and asked when I would fix it. Dad didn't comment at all. Tyler asked if I was going through something. The red hair lasted 3 months before I returned to brown. When I turned 27, I moved into my own apartment in Philadelphia. I invited my family to my housewarming party. Madison came late and left early, citing work preparation. Tyler didn't show up at all, he had a game. My parents stayed for exactly 1 hour, brought me a plant that was completely wrong for my sunny apartment, and spent most of their visit talking about Madison's promotion and Tyler's upcoming championship game. For 2 more years, I tried to maintain the connection. I called weekly. I showed up for birthdays and holidays. I commented on every Facebook post. I existed on the periphery of the Miller family, never quite breaking through the invisible barrier that kept me on the outside. Then, opportunity knocked in the form of a job offer from a prestigious design firm in Denver, Colorado. The position offered better pay, more creative freedom, and most temptingly, distance from the family that couldn't see me. I debated for days whether to tell them. Then, after yet another Sunday dinner where my news about potentially moving across the country didn't even register with anyone, I made a decision. I wouldn't say anything. I would just go. It would be an experiment of sorts, to see how long it would take them to notice I was gone. The job offer from Denver Creative Partners came after I'd submitted my portfolio to their national talent search. When the email arrived requesting a video interview, I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. After the interview, when they offered me the senior designer position with a 40% salary increase, I felt something I hadn't felt in years visible. The hiring manager, Jasmine, had specifically praised the very designs my family had barely glanced at. "Your work shows a unique perspective," she'd said. "We need someone with your eye on our team." The night before I accepted the offer, I attended one last family dinner. It was Tyler's 31st birthday, and the dining room was decorated with balloons and a banner. My mother had prepared all his favorites. "Stephanie, pass the potatoes to your brother," my father said, one of the few times he directly addressed me that evening. "I might be moving to Denver," I said as I handed the bowl to Tyler. "I got a job offer." "Thanks for the potatoes," Tyler said, spooning a hefty portion onto his plate. No one acknowledged my statement. "Madison, how's the Patterson case going?" my mother asked. "It's challenging, but I think we're going to win," Madison replied. "The partner is letting me take the lead on the cross-examination." "That's wonderful." My mother beamed. I cleared my throat. The job in Denver would be a senior position. A big promotion. My father nodded absently in my direction while reaching for the salt. "Madison, will this case help you make partner early?" I sat back in my chair and observed my family really observed them. My mother's eyes lit up when Madison spoke. My father leaned in attentively when Tyler described his latest coaching triumph. When I spoke, their eyes glazed over, their attention already searching for the next comment from one of my siblings. That night, I accepted the Denver position. Then, I made a decision that was equal parts social experiment and self-preservation. I wouldn't announce my move. I would simply go, and see how long it took anyone to notice my absence. Over the next 3 weeks, I methodically prepared for my departure. I gave notice at my Philadelphia job, citing the amazing opportunity in Denver. My colleagues threw me a going-away happy hour. My landlord was sorry to see me go, but found a new tenant quickly. I hired movers, packed my belongings, changed my address on all official documents, and tied up loose ends. The few friends I had in Philadelphia seemed genuinely sad to see me leave. My college roommate Rachel even cried at our farewell lunch. "Promise you'll keep in touch," she said, hugging me tightly. "I'll come visit once you're settled." The day before my departure, I drove to my parents' house when I knew no one would be home. I left my spare key on the kitchen counter. I thought about leaving a note, but decided against it. If they couldn't hear me when I spoke directly to them, what good would written words do? The cross-country drive to Denver took 4 days. With each mile that passed, I felt both heavier with sadness and lighter with freedom. I listened to audiobooks and podcasts, stayed in roadside motels, and took detours to see roadside attractions I'd always wanted to visit. At the Nebraska-Colorado border, I pulled over and took a selfie with the "Welcome to Colorful Colorado" sign. I posted it to my Facebook page with the caption "New Beginnings." Then I continued west toward the mountains and my new life. My apartment in Denver was smaller than my place in Philadelphia, but had something my old place lacked: a view of the mountains. I spent the first evening sitting on my tiny balcony, watching the sunset paint the peaks in shades of pink and gold, wondering if anyone back east had noticed I was gone. The first week passed in a blur of unpacking and orientation at my new job. I checked my phone constantly, half expecting a panicked call from my mother or a confused text from my father. Nothing came. Tyler's birthday was 2 weeks after my move. I sent him a gift card via email and a brief, happy birthday text. He replied with thanks sis, but didn't comment on the fact that the text came from a new area code, or that I hadn't been at the family celebration. A month passed. Then 2. I posted photos of my new life on social media, hiking in the Rockies, my new apartment, my desk at the stylish Denver Creative Partners office. My Philadelphia friends commented and liked. My family, if they saw the posts at all, remained silent. 3 months after my move, I realized with a hollow feeling in my chest that my experiment was yielding clear results. My family hadn't noticed I was gone. The invisible girl had truly disappeared, and no one was looking for her. Denver welcomed me in ways my family never had. My apartment on the 3rd floor of a converted warehouse building in the Rhino district became my sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room framed the Front Range mountains, their peaks snow-capped even in summer. Each morning, I'd wake up and feel a sense of possibility that Philadelphia had never offered. At Denver Creative Partners, my colleagues valued my input from day one. Jasmine, the creative director, who had hired me, became a mentor of sorts. "That campaign concept is brilliant, Stephanie," she said during my 2nd week, pointing to my mock-up for a local brewery. "You have exactly the fresh perspective we needed." I blinked, momentarily stunned by the recognition. "Thank you," I managed to say, unused to having my work acknowledged so directly. The office culture encouraged outdoor activities, and soon I found myself joining the company hiking group for weekend treks. Having grown up in suburban Pennsylvania, I'd never been much of an outdoor enthusiast, but Colorado's landscapes were impossible to resist. "You're a natural mountain woman," joked Marco, one of the copywriters, as I scrambled up a rock formation ahead of the group on our hike up to Royal Arch in Boulder. "Hardly," I laughed, but inside, I treasured the comment. A natural. Something about me that seemed to fit, to belong. Through the hiking group, I met Rachel Wilson, no relation to my college roommate, just a coincidence that helped me feel at home. Rachel worked as an elementary school art teacher, and lived in my building. We bonded over our shared love of design and color, and soon were meeting for coffee every Saturday morning at the little cafe on the corner. "So your family still hasn't called?" Rachel asked one morning, about 4 months after my move, stirring honey into her tea. I shook my head. "Not once. I mean, my mom texts occasionally with generic mom stuff, 'Hope you're doing well,' or 'Stay safe,' but she hasn't once asked where I am or why I'm not at Sunday dinner anymore." Rachel's forehead creased. "That's not normal, Steph. You know that, right?" Until that moment, I hadn't fully allowed myself to acknowledge how abnormal it was. Growing up as the invisible middle child, I'd normalized being overlooked. "Maybe you should talk to someone about it," Rachel suggested gently. "I have a great therapist. She helped me work through some family stuff too." 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting in Dr. Rivera's comfortable office, pouring out 29 years of invisibility. "What you're describing sounds like emotional neglect," Dr. Rivera said, after listening to me describe my childhood and the current situation. "It's a form of trauma that often goes unrecognized, because there's nothing tangible to point to, no arguments, no abuse. Just absence." Over the next few months, weekly therapy sessions helped me process my family dynamics and start to understand that the problem wasn't me, it never had been. I wasn't inherently less interesting or valuable than my siblings. My family's inability to see me was their failing, not mine. As summer turned to fall, my social circle in Denver expanded. I joined a local graphic designers meetup, and started taking a ceramics class at a community studio. I volunteered to redesign the website for a local animal shelter, and adopted a one-eyed cat named Pixel, who greeted me enthusiastically every evening when I returned home. In October, 6 months after my move, I met Blake at a friend's Halloween party. He was dressed as Bob Ross, complete with permed wig and carrying a paintbrush and palette. I was dressed as Frida Kahlo. "I love your work," he said when we were introduced, and for a confused moment I thought he was still in character, talking about Frida's paintings. "Your redesign of the Mountain Trail brewing labels," he clarified with a smile. "I'm a craft beer enthusiast. Those labels are amazing, the way you incorporated the topographical maps into the design." I blushed, unused to having my work recognized by a stranger. "Thank you. That was one of my first projects here." Blake turned out to be an environmental engineer who worked on water conservation projects. Our first date was a hike followed by dinner at a tiny Ethiopian restaurant. Our second was a gallery opening followed by hours of conversation at a quiet bar. By the third date, I knew something was different about this relationship. Blake asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He remembered details about my work, my interests, my opinions. "Tell me more about that," he'd say whenever I mentioned a project or idea, leaning in with genuine interest. As Thanksgiving approached, Blake invited me to join his family's celebration, but I declined, not yet ready to navigate someone else's family dynamics. Instead, Rachel and I hosted a Friendsgiving in my apartment, gathering a group of people who, for various reasons, weren't with family for the holiday. As we sat around my extended dining table, passing dishes family style, and sharing stories, I realized I'd created something I'd never truly had before, a community where I was seen, heard, and valued. Christmas came and went without a call from Pennsylvania. I posted photos of Denver's holiday lights and my small, tastefully decorated tree. My mother commented, "Pretty, but nothing more." No invitation to come home for the holidays, no questions about my plans. I spent Christmas Eve at Rachel's family gathering and Christmas Day with Blake, exchanging thoughtful gifts and cooking together. When New Year's Eve arrived, Blake and I joined a group of friends at a rooftop party downtown, watching fireworks explode over the city skyline. "To new beginnings," Blake said, clinking his champagne glass against mine as the countdown reached 0. "And to being seen," I added quietly. January brought heavy snow to Denver, transforming the city into a winter wonderland. I posted photos of my snow-covered balcony, and a video of Pixel cautiously pawing at the white stuff. No response from family. By February, I had settled into a rhythm in my new city. Work was challenging and fulfilling. My relationship with Blake was deepening. My friendship with Rachel and others provided community. Therapy was helping me understand myself better. Even Pixel had stopped hiding under the bed, and now slept curled against my side each night. I was healing, growing, thriving, all without my family's acknowledgement or approval. Then, in late February, 8 months after I'd left Pennsylvania, an elegant cream envelope appeared in my mailbox, postmarked from Philadelphia. Inside was a formal wedding invitation. My sister Madison was getting married in May, and apparently, I was expected to attend. The invitation was printed on thick, cream-colored paper with gold foil lettering. Together with their families, Madison Elizabeth Miller and James William Harrington request the honor of your presence. I ran my finger over the embossed letters, a hollow feeling spreading in my chest. There was no personal note included. No "miss you" or "hope you can make it" scrawled in my sister's handwriting. Just a generic RSVP card, with my name pre-printed on it. I checked my phone, thinking perhaps Madison had texted or called to personally invite me. Nothing. The return address was my parents' house in Pennsylvania. Somehow, despite not knowing where I lived for the past 8 months, they had managed to get my correct Denver address for the wedding invitation. Had they finally noticed my absence? Had someone been keeping track of me all along without acknowledging it? I set the invitation on my kitchen counter and stared at it for 3 days before finally picking up my phone and calling Madison. My heart pounded as the phone rang. "Hello." Madison answered, sounding distracted. "Hi, Madison. It's Stephanie." "Oh, hey Steph. Can you hold on a second?" I heard muffled voices and the sound of papers shuffling. "Sorry about that. I'm swamped with work and wedding plans." "What's up?" I took a deep breath. "I got your wedding invitation." "Great. So you'll be there, right? Mom's been asking about your RSVP." I gripped the phone tighter. "Madison, I've been living in Denver for 8 months." There was a pause. "Denver? Colorado? Since when?" Her voice registered genuine surprise. "Since last June. I moved for a job." "Oh?" Another pause. "That explains the area code. I thought you'd just changed your number." "No one noticed I was gone," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I haven't been to a Sunday dinner or any family event in 8 months, and not a single person asked where I was." "Well, you've always been kind of independent," Madison said, her tone defensive. "And you know how busy everyone is. Mom and Dad aren't getting any younger, Tyler's coaching schedule is crazy, and I've been swamped with work and wedding planning. Too busy to notice I moved across the country." Madison sighed. "Look, Steph, I don't know what to tell you. You could have said something instead of just disappearing and then getting upset that no one read your mind." "I didn't disappear. I'm all over social media. I post about Denver constantly. And I did tell everyone at Tyler's birthday dinner before I left. No one listened." "Well, anyway," Madison said, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "You're coming to the wedding, right? Mom's already submitted the head count to the caterer, and she included you." The casual dismissal of my feelings and the assumption that I would simply show up after 8 months of being forgotten made something snap inside me. "I'll think about it," I said coolly. "What do you mean, you'll think about it? It's my wedding, Stephanie. Of course you're coming." Madison's voice had taken on the authoritative tone she'd used since childhood, when she wanted to get her way. I said I'll think about it. I need to check my work schedule and things. "Things? What things could be more important than your sister's wedding?" Now she sounded genuinely offended. "I'll let you know soon," I said, and ended the call before she could protest further. Within hours, my phone exploded with notifications. Madison had apparently spread the word about our conversation. My mother called 3 times before leaving a voicemail. "Stephanie, honey, we just heard you're living in Denver now. Why didn't you tell us? And of course you're coming to Madison's wedding. Call me back so we can talk about your travel plans." No acknowledgement of the 8-month absence. No apology for not noticing. Just confusion about why I hadn't told them, though I had, and the assumption that I would be at the wedding. My father's voicemail was more direct. "Stephanie, this is your father. Your sister is very upset. I don't know what kind of game you're playing by moving without telling anyone, but it needs to stop now. Madison deserves your support on her big day. Call your mother." Then came the texts from aunts, uncles, and cousins, all variations on the same theme. How could I consider missing Madison's wedding? What was wrong with me? Was I trying to ruin her special day? Only Aunt Carol's message was different. "Stephanie, dear, I've been worried about you. I noticed you weren't at Christmas and tried to ask your mother, but she changed the subject. Are you really in Colorado? Are you happy there? That's what matters most to me. Let's talk soon. Love you. Blake found me that evening sitting on my balcony, staring at the mountains with my phone face down beside me. Bad day, he asked, joining me with 2 glasses of wine. I showed him the invitation and told him about the calls and messages. 8 months, he said, shaking his head. And they're acting like you're the problem. Welcome to the Miller family dynamics, I said, taking a long sip of wine. Where the middle child is invisible until she inconveniences someone. What are you going to do? I sighed, watching the sunset paint the mountains pink and gold. I don't know yet. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Madison's wedding invitation, heard my father's angry voicemail, felt the familiar sensation of being simultaneously erased and expected to perform my role in the family. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time since moving to Denver. I sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, with Pixel purring beside me, staring at the invitation on my coffee table. Around noon, Rachel arrived with soup and bread from our favorite cafe. Blake called me, she explained, setting the food on the counter. He's worried about you. I smiled weakly. I'm fine. Clearly, Rachel said dryly, looking at my unwashed hair and the blanket cocoon I'd created. Want to talk about it? I told her everything: the invitation, the calls, the texts, the complete denial from my family that anything unusual had happened. It's like they've rewritten reality, I said. In their version, I'm the difficult one who inexplicably moved without telling anyone and now might rudely skip Madison's wedding. They've completely erased the part where they didn't notice I was gone for 8 months. Gaslighting, Rachel said, handing me a bowl of soup. Classic family gaslighting. That evening, Blake came over after work. He sat beside me on the couch, patient and steady, as I cycled through anger, hurt, and confusion. I keep having anxiety attacks when I think about going to the wedding, I admitted. But then I feel guilty for even considering not going. What kind of person doesn't attend their sister's wedding? The kind whose family didn't notice she moved across the country, Blake replied. Steph, you don't owe them your presence just because they finally remembered you exist. The next day, I had an emergency session with Dr. Rivera. What does your gut tell you about attending the wedding? She asked after I'd explained the situation. Part of me wants to go just to confront them, to make them acknowledge what happened, I said. Another part wants to send a gift with a note saying surprise, I've been gone for 8 months. Dr. Rivera nodded. Those are both understandable reactions. What about a third option? Going on your own terms, with boundaries in place. What would that look like? You decide how much time you spend with your family, where you stay, how you'll protect your emotional well-being. You go not because you're obligated, but because you're choosing to, with full awareness of the dynamics at play. That evening, I started a pros and cons list about attending the wedding. Pros. Could provide closure. Might be an opportunity for honest conversation. Would avoid family drama of being absent. Chance to show them the confident, successful person I've become. Would get to see Aunt Carol. Cons. Potential for emotional harm. Might reinforce pattern of being overlooked. Expensive, flights, hotel, gift, clothes. Would need to take time off work. Risk of nothing changing. For the next week, I added to the list, talked it over with Blake and Rachel, and brought it to my therapy session. I researched flights and hotels. I imagined scenarios: showing up and being embraced by my family, showing up and being ignored, not showing up and being vilified, not showing up and finally being free. Finally, I called the one person in my family I trusted, Aunt Carol. "Stephanie. I'm so glad you called. How are you, sweetheart?" Her warm voice brought tears to my eyes. "I'm really good, Aunt Carol. Denver is amazing. I have a great job, wonderful friends, a nice apartment with a view of the mountains, and even a boyfriend who sees me." "Sees you," she repeated softly. I understand the significance of that. Of course she did. Aunt Carol had always seen me. "They're all upset about Madison's wedding," I said. "Did you know I've been gone for 8 months and no one noticed until I got the invitation?" Aunt Carol was quiet for a moment. "I suspected something was wrong when you weren't at Christmas. Your mother changed the subject every time I asked about you. I should have tried harder to reach you." "I'm sorry, Stephanie." "It's not your fault," I said quickly. "You were the only one who ever really saw me. What will you do about the wedding?" I sighed. "I don't know. Part of me wants to just send my regrets. But then I'd be confirming what they already believe, that I'm difficult and selfish." "You're neither of those things," Aunt Carol said firmly. "You've spent your life trying to be seen by people who aren't looking. That's not your failing, it's theirs. So you don't think I should go? I think you should do what brings you peace, not what you think you're supposed to do. And if you do come, I'd love to see you. But I'll support whatever you decide." After we hung up, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset. Blake joined me, sitting quietly beside me, respecting my process. "I think I need to go," I finally said. "Not for them, but for me. If I don't, I'll always wonder if I could have changed things. And if nothing changes, at least I'll know I tried one last time." Blake squeezed my hand. "Then I'll help you get ready. And I'll be here waiting when you come back." The decision made, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. I booked a flight to Philadelphia for the week of the wedding. I reserved a hotel room instead of staying with my parents. I bought a new dress, a deep emerald green, that made me feel confident and strong. I arranged for time off work. And then I called Madison and told her I would be attending her wedding. "Great," she said, sounding distracted again. "Mom will be so relieved." I took a deep breath. "Madison, we need to talk about the fact that no one noticed I moved across the country. Can we just not do this right now, Steph? I'm drowning in wedding details, and I don't have time for whatever this is. We can talk after the wedding, okay?" I recognized the deflection for what it was, another erasure. But this time, I wasn't that invisible middle child anymore. I was stronger now. "We will talk," I said firmly. "I'll see you at the rehearsal dinner." As the wedding date approached, my anxiety fluctuated. Some days I felt strong and prepared to face my family with new boundaries. Other days, I considered canceling my flight and sending a gift instead. "What's the worst that could happen?" Dr. Rivera asked during our last session before my trip. "They continue to not see me," I replied. "They dismiss my feelings again. Nothing changes. And if that happens, then at least I'll know I tried. I can move forward with my life in Denver without wondering if things could have been different." The night before my flight, Blake helped me pack. He held up my emerald green dress. "You're going to look amazing in this." "That's the plan," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. New Stephanie, impossible to ignore. "You were never ignorable," Blake said, kissing my forehead. "They just weren't paying attention." The morning of my flight, Blake drove me to the airport. In the departure lane, he pulled me into a tight hug. "Remember, you're not that invisible girl anymore," he whispered. "You're strong, successful, and loved. Call me anytime. I'll answer on the first ring. As the plane took off, I watched the Rocky Mountains recede beneath me. For 8 months, those mountains had been my backdrop, the dramatic scenery of my new life. Now I was heading east, back to the flat suburbs of Pennsylvania and the family that had failed to notice my absence. 3 hours later, the plane touched down in Philadelphia. The familiar humidity hit me as soon as I stepped outside the terminal. I had reserved a rental car, unwilling to depend on family for transportation. As I loaded my suitcase into the trunk, I realized my hands were shaking. "You've got this," I whispered to myself, echoing Blake's parting words. I drove directly to my hotel, a modest place about 15 minutes from my parents' house and the wedding venue. I'd chosen it carefully, close enough to be convenient, but far enough to provide refuge if needed. After checking in and freshening up, I decided to take a drive past my childhood home. The colonial-style house looked exactly the same: the blue shutters my mother had insisted on, the neatly trimmed hedges my father maintained with military precision, the basketball hoop over the garage where Tyler had practiced for hours. I parked across the street and stared at the house, memories washing over me. Birthday parties where Madison got the corner piece of cake with the most frosting. School mornings when Tyler got the last of the good cereal. Dinners where I'd raised my hand to speak, like I was in a classroom instead of my own home. A lump formed in my throat. This house had never really been my home. It had been a place where I lived, a place where I tried and failed to be seen. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Are you in town yet? Rehearsal dinner at 6. Don't be late." "No, how was your flight?" "No, looking forward to seeing you." Just instructions, as always. I drove back to my hotel and prepared for the rehearsal dinner. As I applied my makeup and styled my hair, I gave myself a pep talk in the mirror. You are not defined by their perception of you. You have value regardless of whether they see it. You are enough, exactly as you are. The rehearsal dinner was at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. I arrived exactly on time, not early as had been my habit in the past. As I walked in, I spotted my family immediately: my father in his navy blazer, my mother in a conservative dress, Madison glowing in pre-wedding excitement, Tyler laughing with a group of groomsmen. I took a deep breath and approached. My mother saw me first. "Stephanie. There you are." She air-kissed my cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick. "You cut your hair." "6 months ago," I replied. She didn't seem to register the comment. "Come say hello to James's parents. They're dying to meet Madison's sister." For the next hour, I was introduced as Madison's sister to a parade of relatives and future in-laws. Each time, my mother would add some variation of, "She's come all the way from Denver for the wedding," as if my presence was some extraordinary gesture rather than a basic family obligation. My father gave me a brief, awkward hug when our paths finally crossed. "Good to see you, sweetheart. How's the job?" Before I could answer, he was pulled away by one of James's uncles wanting to discuss golf. Tyler bumped my shoulder when he passed me at the bar. "Hey, stranger. Colorado, huh? That's random." "Not random. Intentional," I corrected. "I got a great job offer." "Cool." He grabbed his beer from the bartender. "Catch you later." Madison was so busy being the center of attention that we barely spoke beyond her quick, "Thanks for coming," when I congratulated her. As the evening wore on, I felt the familiar sensation of fading into the background. But this time, I recognized it happening and made a conscious choice not to let it consume me. Instead, I found a quiet moment to call Rachel on FaceTime from a corner of the restaurant. "How's it going?" she asked, her concerned face filling my screen. Exactly as expected, I replied. It's like I never left and also like I'm not really here. Remember your boundaries, she said. You don't have to stay if it becomes too much. I know. I'm actually doing okay. It's different when you can see the dynamic clearly instead of just feeling lost in it. After ending the call, I rejoined the party long enough to say goodnight to the essential people, then retreated to my hotel. In the quiet room, I texted Blake, "Day 1 survived. Nothing's changed, but I've changed. That's something." His reply came immediately, "Proud of you. One day down, one big day to go. You've got this." The morning of Madison's wedding dawned bright and clear. I took my time getting ready in my hotel room, carefully applying my makeup and styling my hair into an elegant updo. The emerald green dress fit perfectly, highlighting curves I'd gained since moving to Denver, the result of hiking and actually enjoying food, without my mother's subtle comments about calories. As I fastened my grandmother's pearl earrings, the only family heirloom I'd ever received, I studied my reflection. I looked good. Strong. Present. The invisible middle child was gone, replaced by a confident woman who knew her worth. I arrived at the country club venue precisely 45 minutes before the ceremony, as instructed in Madison's detailed itinerary. The place was already bustling with activity, florists making final adjustments, photographers capturing getting ready moments, relatives milling about in formal attire. I found my mother in the bridal suite, fussing over Madison's veil, while a makeup artist applied the finishing touches to my sister's face. "Oh, Stephanie, there you are," my mother said without looking up from the veil. "You look nice." Madison caught my eye in the mirror. For a brief moment, something like recognition flickered across her face. "You do look nice, Steph," she said. "Green suits you." "Thanks." I smiled at my sister, the bride. Despite everything, I did want her to have a happy day. "You look beautiful, Madison." The ceremony was elegant and brief. I sat in the front row next to my brother, watching as Madison and James exchanged vows beneath an arch of white roses. When the minister asked if anyone objected to the union, I felt Tyler glance at me nervously. I kept my eyes forward, my expression serene. At the reception, I discovered I'd been seated at a table far from the main family table, with distant cousins and friends from Madison's college days. Classic Miller family oversight, or perhaps intentional, given my recent, difficult behavior of expecting to be acknowledged. I introduced myself to my table mates, answering their curious questions about Denver and my job. When they expressed surprise at my cross-country move, I simply said, it was time for a change. After dinner, my father approached my table. "Stephanie, your mother would like some photos with just family. Can you come with me?" I followed him to where the photographer had set up near the dance floor. I looked at her, really looked at her, trying to see if there was any recognition in her eyes of what those words meant after 8 months of absence. There wasn't. "Mom," I said quietly, "I haven't been at Sunday dinner for 8 months. I moved to Colorado in June." She blinked. "Well, yes, I know that now. But you should have told us. We're your family." "I did tell you." No one listened. My mother's expression hardened slightly. "Stephanie, I don't know why you're trying to create drama at your sister's wedding. If you had something important to say, you should have made sure we heard you." In that moment, I understood with perfect clarity that nothing would change. My mother, my entire family, was incapable of seeing the role they had played in my disappearance. In their narrative, any breakdown in communication was my fault, my failure to make myself heard rather than their failure to listen. Before I could respond, my father appeared at my mother's elbow. The Harringtons want to talk about the summer house plans, he said, guiding her away. I stood alone near the dance floor, watching as my parents joined James's family, as Madison laughed with her bridesmaids, as Tyler charmed a group of young women near the bar. I was, as always, peripheral to the main event. I decided to get some air and walked out to the venue's garden terrace. To my surprise, Tyler followed me out a few minutes later. "Hey," he said, joining me at the stone railing overlooking the golf course. "You okay? Why do you ask?" He shrugged, uncomfortable with direct emotional questions as always. "You seem, I don't know, different." I laughed softly. "I am different. That's what happens when you build a new life." "About that." Tyler shifted his weight. "I should have noticed you were gone." "I'm sorry, Steph." His apology, simple and unexpected, brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you for saying that. I didn't really get it until I saw you today. You look happier. Like you found something out there that you didn't have here." "I found myself," I said simply. "And people who see me." Tyler nodded, looking out at the darkening sky. "I always saw you, you know. I just didn't know how to say it. Madison was always so loud about everything, and I was the baby, and you were just steady. I took that for granted." We stood in silence for a moment, a new understanding between us. "Do you think you'll come back?" he finally asked. "To Pennsylvania?" "No. My life is in Denver now. But maybe you could visit sometime. I'd like to show you the mountains." "I'd like that," he said, and I believed him. When we returned to the reception, Madison was preparing to toss her bouquet. She spotted me and waved me over. "Come on, Steph. You're the last single Miller girl." I joined the group of single women, more to please Madison on her day than out of any interest in the tradition. When she tossed the bouquet, it sailed over the grasping hands of eager bridesmaids and landed squarely in my unprepared arms. Madison let out a delighted laugh. "Look at that. Maybe Colorado has some eligible bachelors." "Actually, I am seeing someone," I said. "His name is Blake. He's an environmental engineer." A flicker of genuine interest crossed Madison's face. "Really? How long?" "About 5 months now. He's wonderful." Madison squeezed my arm. "I want to hear all about him. Call me next week." I nodded, knowing that the call probably wouldn't happen. Madison would get caught up in post-wedding life, and our moment of connection would fade. But the fact that it had happened at all felt like a small victory. As the evening wore on, I found myself mentally checking out of the celebration. I had done what I came to do, shown up, faced my family, tried one last time to be seen. The results were mixed at best, but I felt a growing sense of peace. Around 10 o'clock, I quietly gathered my things and slipped out of the reception. In my hotel room, I kicked off my heels and called Blake. "How was it?" he asked immediately. "Illuminating," I replied. "I realized something important today. I've been waiting for them to see me, to acknowledge me, to validate my existence. But I don't need that anymore. I know who I am now." "And who is that?" he asked softly. "Someone worth seeing. Someone who doesn't need to disappear to be noticed." The next morning, instead of attending Sunday dinner as my mother had suggested, I checked out of the hotel and headed to the airport for an earlier flight than I'd originally booked. I texted my parents a brief message, heading back to Denver. "Thanks for including me in Madison's special day." My mother replied almost immediately, "But it's Sunday dinner. We were going to catch up." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. As the plane took off, I watched Philadelphia recede beneath me, feeling lighter than I had in years. The experiment was over. The results were clear. My family might never truly see me, but that no longer defined me. When I landed in Denver, Blake was waiting at the arrivals gate with a small sign that read, "Welcome home, Stephanie." Beside him stood Rachel, holding Pixel in a carrier. "We thought you might need a proper welcome committee," Rachel explained as she hugged me. "How did you get Pixel here?" I asked, peering into the carrier where my one-eyed cat meowed indignantly. "Blake has your spare key," she winked. "We figured your support system should be complete." As we drove back to my apartment, the mountains came into view, massive, unchanging, steadfast. In the 8 months since I'd moved to Denver, they had become more than scenery. They had become symbols of the strength I'd found within myself. Back in my apartment, I unpacked my suitcase, hanging the emerald green dress in my closet where it would likely remain unworn for some time. I had no regrets about attending the wedding, but I also had no illusions about my family suddenly changing their patterns of a lifetime. Over the next few weeks, I received a few texts from Tyler asking about hiking trails and mountain views. My mother called once to ask if I'd received the thank you note Madison had sent for my wedding gift. My father never reached out at all. Aunt Carol, true to form, called regularly to check in, and had already booked a flight to visit in the fall. "I want to see these mountains you're always talking about," she said. "And meet this Blake who sees you so clearly." As spring turned to summer, marking 1 full year since my move to Denver, I hosted a small gathering in my apartment, a Coloradoversary, Rachel called it. Blake, Rachel, and friends from work and my hiking group filled my small space with laughter and conversation. During a quiet moment, Blake joined me on the balcony where I was taking a break from the festivities. "Happy anniversary," he said, handing me a glass of wine. "1 year of being seen." I smiled, leaning into him as we looked out at the mountains, painted gold by the setting sun. "You know, I spent so many years feeling invisible, thinking there was something wrong with me. But the truth was, I was just in the wrong place, with people who couldn't or wouldn't see me." "Their loss," Blake said simply. "Yes," I agreed. "Their loss." That Thanksgiving, I hosted dinner for my chosen family: Blake, Rachel, friends from work, neighbors from my building. We crowded around my dining table, sharing food and stories and genuine connection. At Christmas, I flew to Philadelphia for 1 day, just long enough to have lunch with Aunt Carol and exchange gifts, before returning to Denver for celebrations with the people who had become my real family. When Madison texted in February to announce she was pregnant, I sent a genuine congratulations and a gift card to a baby boutique. When my mother called to discuss summer plans, I politely explained I'd be taking vacation time to go camping in Yellowstone with Blake and friends. I no longer felt angry when I thought about my family. I no longer felt hurt by their inability to see me. I had finally learned that my worth wasn't determined by their recognition. The invisible middle child no longer existed. In her place stood a woman who had built a life where she was valued, appreciated, and most importantly, seen. Creating your own family, the one that sees you, hears you, and loves you for exactly who you are, that's the greatest act of self-care you can ever perform. Have you had to create your own chosen family? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if my story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the people who are meant to be in your life aren't the ones you were born to, but the ones who choose to see you every single day. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you always be surrounded by people who truly see you.